Welcome to a Pint of Cacophony. My name is Dan Patronillo. We're just outside of Denver, Colorado, and we're going to talk to Diane Tomecek from SOFT. That's the Sea Otter Trust and Foundation. Now, why are we talking about sea creatures in landlocked Colorado? Let's find out.
You're not a weirdo. Come on.
I'm not. Well, I mean, this is a very nice setting, but, you know, maybe a different one. So, SOFT. SOFT is the Sea Otter Foundation and Trust.
Correct.
Right. So,
Yes.
What does the Sea Otter Foundation and Trust do?
Our main mission is to actually fundraise to grant to sea otter researchers, biologists, and conservation initiatives that are helping the sea otter.
Okay, so as a foundation and trust, you look for people that are working actively with sea otters.
Correct.
And then you fund basically their research and,
Correct.
I mean, their livelihood while they do this work?
Yes, potentially. We are looking to be, at least now, because we did start just in 2014, we are looking for just giving small supportive grants to especially PhD students that are working on their master's program and even just any higher level than bachelor's degree program.
Right, so as soon as somebody passes that bachelor's level and they show you that gung-ho, we're going master's or whatever into the otter world.
Right.
You're like,
Absolutely.
I got you.
Yeah. And we have, we actually just did our first granting last year.
Nice.
And many applicants from like University of Washington, University of California, Santa Cruz. So, and then a variety of other applicants as well. We had about 12 applicants last year.
Okay, so let's bring this back just a bit. So that's what the foundation does. We make sure that people who want to do the research and take care of these animals can.
Correct.
Right. So before that, though, where do these otters come from? Where do they live? What's the deal? I mean, I know all this, right? Because I'm obsessed. Just as why you're in my apartment. But like, I mean, a lot of our listeners listen to punk rock. They listen to whatever they might listen to, and then they're going like, why is Dan talking about otters right now?
Right.
Why are we talking about otters?
Well, otters are exceptionally important to the ocean environment that they live in.
Yes.
They are actually helping to maintain kelp forests, and they are, in doing so, they are actually helping with global warming.
Right.
And decreasing that carbon emission from
It's
global
like
warming.
One of my
standpoint.
favorite things about the otter. I'm a little obsessed. It's just like I listen to like audio docs about it all the time as I fall asleep, along with whale noises. Like,
So, nice.
I got this one like on the top of the playlist right there.
Great.
Just,
there you go.
Anyways, but like, so the sea otters roll in the ecosystem. Like, they eat sea urchin and about like 100 other different sea lives of calamari, squid, crustaceans. Right. So they eat all this seafood from where they live. What are we looking at? Like North America, South America, on the coast? Where are these guys living?
I was going to say, I'm like, on the Pacific coast, only.
Right, yeah.
I was going to say, only from the Russian coast down Alaska, over to Alaska into the United States, down to British Columbia.
Right.
And Washington State. And then they skip Oregon State, unfortunately. There's some stragglers that go down to parts of northern Oregon and up from California to southern Oregon. And then they jump down to a central coast of California. So Monterey area, Morro Bay, down to about Santa Barbara.
Gotcha.
And then there's a little raft of them, as we call sea otters, or a group of sea otters is known as a raft. They are down off of San Nicolas Island. There's about 100 to 110 animals.
Where's San
down.
Nicolas Island?
Down off of the coast, like near Catalina.
Okay.
Outside of Los Angeles.
Yeah, so you look at the horizon out there in Southern California, you see like a big one, and then like the little different like things on the horizon. San Nicolas is one of those.
Yes.
We got some otters there.
Yep.
Awesome.
That was a translocation program.
What is it about the Oregon coast that kind of keeps them away?
We are trying to figure that out with some organizations currently.
Do you need help? I'm just kidding.
We actually do. We actually granted to Oregon Wild last year.
Cool.
And they are working on trying to bring the otter back to the Oregon coast. I think it's probably a food source issue. That
so it's
maybe
it's not like a current thing that's pushing them away or anything. It's just like a lack of resources.
Right.
I see.
And they tend to be, scientists are actually finding that they tend to be a little bit like homing. set up almost with a homing beacon that allows them to, or causes them to want to stay wherever they were.
Okay.
And so, especially
like
when they
home.
become,
Yeah.
especially when they become used to home, and when they become a little bit older. But juveniles, and maybe, well, I guess juveniles are probably, because a pup can't survive without its mother.
Right.
But juveniles are actually maybe going to be the best ones to make that jump to Northern California and into Oregon.
Might that be because of their, like, not adolescence, but their, like, lifespan and their
Right.
like energy levels?
Yes.
They're ready for that kind of adventure.
Right.
Where so the older ones they're gonna be more glued to home.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Just as otter history goes, like I remember looking into this a while ago. Morro Bay is a frequent visitation of mine. Really love that area, Pismo Beach, like that Avila Bay, that whole area.
Right.
Morro Bay, the rock itself, surrounded by otters. And I remember looking into it while I was in Morro Bay one of this last times with my fiance, and we found out that during, I believe it's the 1800s, there's like all
Right.
the for the pelts, the hunting. These otters were almost extinct, correct?
Right.
Right. And then Morro Bay and this like central California area, we had this resurgence. Like they came back almost, and they were almost extinct, but now we get to have otters again. What happened?
Well, I was going to say they discovered them in the 1930s. That raft of otters that were. They had stayed there and survived there. So
Where were they staying? Was it Monterey area or like where was that?
Just outside of Big Sur.
Okay,
is
cool.
where they were, and then they've just kind of expanded from there to that center to
breeding
be
and reproducing.
yes,
Right.
yeah, and that's actually fascinating because to me, to actually stay and not be hunted and be like this, it was a group of, I think if I recall,
It's
it was
like the
a group
original
of,
something, right? Like for how many there were. It wasn't that many. It wasn't over 30, was it?
I think it was a group of about 50.
That's all. Okay, 50, cool.
That were in that raft. And it's just a really sad situation. That's one of the reasons why they are so susceptible because of their fur, and that's why they were hunted to near extinction. Because
back then
it's warm.
they were being hunted because they are warm, and otters not unlike most sea life, they don't have blubber, they don't have a thick layer of fat. Their warmth comes from their fur,
right?
Because what is it about their fur that makes it so like valuable for them, and then poachers or people who want to wear it?
So right. Well, the ability to actually maintain and keep the heat in, because they do have an underlayer or an undercoat. I will use this little guy as a
we got the
demonstration.
demonstration, sure.
So this little guy, he's got this top coat of fur.
Yeah.
Is really what's going to actually maintain the water from, the water's just going to like roll off.
It's like his outer
of it.
shield almost, right?
Right.
Cool.
And then the undercoat is actually a really, really dense fur that is the closest to their body. And they can blow air, and that's why you see them often, playing with their face and doing all
they're
kinds
always
of
like
their-
rubbing,
and
right?
grooming and things like that.
It's like they're lathering constantly.
And they're pushing that air between those two layers, and that air creates an extra barrier against the cold ocean waters.
So that's why they're always like messing with their fur and like not scratching, but more like rubbing each other and themselves.
Right.
It's kind of like we put that extra oxygen in there and warms them up a little bit.
Right. And then they're keeping it clean.
Does that require constant maintenance?
Yes.
Jeez.
I was going to say.
How exhausting, right?
Right. And that's why they have to eat so much too. Because
what is that like?
Do what?
Well, what is that like? Like their intake?
I said their intake is about 25 to 30% of their body weight per day.
Right. And what does an average otter weigh?
They are between, males are getting up to 65 to 80 pounds, and then females are less. They're maybe about 50 pounds, but just on an average.
Right.
But yes,
so they're eating a lot of food.
Yes,
absolutely. Maybe more pounds of meat than I eat.
Right. Yes, definitely.
So where do they get that from? Like that protein, that extra food?
They are foraging in the kelp forest for things like urchins and abalone. Their favorite foods tend to be the highest caloric count foods because they need that energy.
Yeah, they need to burn that. And that's their fuel for all day, all that work they do.
Right. And so we think about them doing abalone, crabs, again, urchins. I'm thinking about.
So they eat what I eat.
Potentially, if we can, shrimp.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're also, I mean, they'll eat, kind of anything that they could find in terms of shellfish and crustaceans. But they also will eat fat innkeeper worms.
Fat innkeeper worms. What is that?
That's
where do you get a worm in the ocean?
You're going to ask me a question I don't know the answer to.
Okay, cool.
They're just
there, right?
They are. They're sort of like this, almost like. I've seen them, and they're like the slugs of the sea.
Interesting.
And so, but I don't think they get that much caloric intake from those guys. So I think
maybe
that's
just
kind
like
of like
more
a
like tastier treats.
Like I'm going to eat that because I can't find anything else something.
I see.
But
struggling to find something worth it today. Let's eat some worms.
Right.
Got it.
And they're giant things. They're not like little earthworms that we think about. But
nice and pudgy.
Right.
What is an otter? Like, they're doing all this hunting and foraging every day to keep up this energy level they have to maintain in order to almost to stay afloat, survive, keep themselves buoyant and warm. What's a day in the life of like?
Well, the ones I've witnessed generally are, they're sleeping a lot to conserve that energy, but also just during a really nice sunny day, they're going to be out foraging and diving, and then cracking open those shells with their favorite tools, those rocks that are their favorite tools.
This is one of my most fascinating things about otters. Okay, so they find the need or the necessity to use a tool to eat.
Yes.
What does that look like for an otter? I mean, first you got to find the proper tool.
Right.
What does that entail?
Usually it's they'll grab a rock. Most times it's going to be a rock.
From the bottom of the ocean?
Yes, usually.
How far down are we going for that?
It depends. Not too far. It depends on where they are.
Sure.
But an otter can dive up to 300 feet.
Damn.
And, hold its breath.
I don't think I can hold my breath that long.
Right. I was going to say, hold its breath for... I can't remember what the actual fact is on that one, but...
well, you go down 300 feet, you give yourself a couple seconds to forage, and then the way back up.
Right.
It's a little bit over a few minutes almost. Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
So they're usually, and they just bring that rock back up. They have a little pouch under their forearms that they can carry. Yeah, essentially their armpit.
So they tuck the little rock down there and swim back on up. Cool.
And usually with another piece of food,
right.
if they're lucky, at the same time, and they can keep that rock with them. There was indications that they always had the same favorite rock for like days, but scientists are actually finding that that's actually not necessarily true.
So they more like ditch it and pick a new one up when necessary.
Yeah,
got it.
Yeah, and so because the crustaceans and things that they're eating are so hard to get into, they need to use that rock.
Yeah, they got those outer shells. They got something to break them up, especially like abalone and shells, like clams or whatever.
Absolutely.
I mean, I have a hard time trying to shuck an oyster with a shucking tool.
Right.
I mean, what are these guys trying to do on their back floating there? There's like
and they're using their exceptionally strong forearms and just using that rock to crack it open.
That's crazy.
And they have really strong teeth.
Awesome.
To be able to, and they're pulling on the. They'll take the clam and then kind of yank on it once they get it.
I've heard that they have like this crazy big, like strong bite.
Yes.
It's been compared to like pit bulls.
Okay. I was going to say, I have not heard that one. But
I don't know where I heard that. I forgot. It's just like, I heard that like when you get in the water with an otter, I've heard that people have had in the past to kind of like put like a chainmail glove on or so. Just, I don't know. Okay. I doubt they bite often or whatever, but if they were to.
I was going to say, they can do some serious damage.
If they're crushing through crustaceans, I feel like our skin and flesh.
Right.
Yeah.
And they are actually, I will remind people that they are a marine mammal that's protected under the Marine Mammal Protection Act of 1972. So we do not want to go too close to them, and we want to remain
What does that act mean, though? Like, that means you can't approach them?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
What other animals fall in that?
Other marine mammals, dolphins, seals, sea lions.
So
certainly.
When I'm diving in La Jolla Cove and snorkeling close to sea lions, am I breaking the law? It's kind of a gray line there. Like,
well, yeah, I was going to say it is. I think it's a matter of like whether you approach them or if they approach you, and you don't want to disturb them.
Sure.
And it's more of a disturbance. It's more of a disturbance factor for them.
Gotcha.
And there's a lot of people that will go up, especially because sea otters are floating on the top of the water, and so then they'll kayak really close to them, and they'll be like, oh, I got to take this picture, and they'll get really close, and that's not good, because then if the sea otter looks like it's looking at you and then diving away, you've disturbed it.
Right.
So.
My train of thought personally, when I'm in the water with cameras or whatever, it's just like, I don't like making them know I'm there unless they want me to. And they're coming over trying to play. Not otters in general. I've never swam with an otter, but like sea lions, turtles. I've had a couple curious leopard sharks at Aloha. But like other than that, it's more like I try and get a good lens so I'm away and get a decent shot rather than trying to come near them and disturb them, right? And I feel like that should be a pretty decent practice that like most people entering the oceans and waters should try and keep up. I don't want to be like an elitist in that manner. I feel like maybe if we're not trying, like if people aren't walking through your door, maybe we shouldn't be walking through theirs.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. I wholeheartedly agree, and I emphasize, I mean, most of my photography that I've shot has been 400 millimeter lens or longer.
You got that telephoto going.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really nowhere near them. We got
some great pictures. I mean, we got some rolling on the screen right now. I'm just curious, like, where are these taken?
Some have been at zoos and aquariums with sea otters.
Sure.
And then a lot of them are in Elkhorn Slough. Just up outside of Monterey, Pacific Grove area.
Okay.
It's in Moss Landing is actually the name of the town.
Moss Landing.
It's about 15 miles up on the north side of Monterey.
Now for people listening in Colorado and then like Californians who don't leave LA, where are we talking about? This is north. Now, San Francisco as a gauge, are we looking above or below?
Below San Francisco, about an hour and a half below San Francisco.
Right there
driving.
On the coast.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. What makes that area so like thriving for them? Like there's so many in that area.
Right. And I was going to say, I'm like, I still think it's the food source.
Yeah.
And they are getting to be at what scientists call carrying capacity in that area, so they are going to need to start moving.
Okay.
Carrying capacity means that they are to a point where the food source cannot support the population of sea otters.
Gotcha. So they have to spread out so they can all eat well.
It's the carrying capacity of that area for.
You think that coast gives them those options though, or are they going to get a little stuck?
We're hoping so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
so in us hoping so, like what are we doing as humans on this earth to change that for them? I mean, we used to hunt them.
Right.
We used to skin them and turn them into jackets. Right. Which is, it is what that is. Yeah.
Right.
We've done some crazy things as human beings along the years, and we continue to. But I'd like to think and have faith in the human race that we learn along the way. And people like you doing things like this, I'm like, yes, okay, we're learning. Right. So as we learn with these otters, we're no longer hunting them. There was that pod out in Central California that's starting to grow into a whole lot more. We're still an endangered species, right?
Yes.
So where are we going? We're trying to get these all over the world, these little otters, or are we trying to just let them thrive healthfully?
I think it's mostly let them thrive healthfully. So I think it's a lot of pollution efforts or anti-pollution efforts in the California and agricultural areas of that range. And then some places, believe it or not, there has been bounties put on their heads because they have quite a few sea otters.
Bounties?
Yes, bounties, like hunting bounties.
No way. Still?
Yes.
This is 2016. People are hunting otters?
Yes. And it's
I'd like to meet that guy. I'd have some words.
Great. It's not a good, in my mind, it's not a good thing. But
this is trying to be like a population control thing?
Yeah, a little bit.
What can we do to make them not do that? I mean, there's so few of them. Why are we killing them?
Right. I was going to say, I'm like, education, I think, is the biggest thing. And
definitely. I mean, geez.
And a knowledge that they need to survive.
Yeah.
And that they are telling us things about the ocean that can impact ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest thing I try to tell people in Colorado, because there's a lot of people that look at me that
Well, we're landlocked.
Right.
Yeah.
You're landlocked. What the heck are you doing? Sea otters.
we're sitting outside of Denver with otters on the screen. We're holding a plush otter, having this conversation.
Exactly. So I think that they're telling us a ton about the seafood that we're getting out of the ocean.
Interesting.
They're what's known as an indicator species for that they tell us the first things about pollution,
right?
Sources in things like crabs and shrimp and other fish that technically they're not eating the fish as much as.
So that's how we notice is like if we watch them not like go for the things they normally go for, we think maybe there might be something wrong with that species right now.
Right.
Interesting.
And even unfortunately diseases that they're getting from those things.
Those foods, right?
Yeah. So that's really what my background is actually nonprofit development and marketing. Mm-hmm. So I've been in that industry since about 1999.
And you hear that you can use those skills towards otters, and you go,
and I'm just like, I'm going to ponder that for a year or so, and then I did, and then I took it back to the community, and they were like, sure, okay, somebody wants to give us money, okay, yeah, why not?
Right.
And so then I just took the leap in 2014 and started working with them.
That's really awesome. So Soft has been around for about 2 years now?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. And in those 2 years, what would you say like maybe your biggest achievements have been in Soft? Like,
right. I think probably our first granting. I think I was most proud of that, which was last year. And we actually just issued our second request for proposals. I apologize.
Sure.
Just yesterday for our second granting that'll go out later this year. So I think that's probably the crowning achievement to see what it's really.
That whole deal that was so grand. Like what happened at the end of that? Like what made it like. For a floating otter in the ocean, how did they feel that?
I think
maybe not initially, obviously, but like how's that getting to them is what I'm going for.
The 3 grantees that we funded are actually doing a lot of work to help that sea otter in the ocean.
Yeah.
We granted to an organization called Team Ocean that is working in the Monterey Bay area and the Elkhorn Slough area to be out on the ocean kayaking, teaching people to maintain that safe distance from sea otters.
Nice.
So they're protecting them, they're protecting the human, they're protecting the sea otter, and they're educating the human on why we need to allow them to maintain.
I like how we refer to them as the human.
Right. Yeah, sorry.
No, I like that because like I'm so into animals and stuff. It's like the human. Sometimes we are the human.
Right.
It's constantly human.
Right.
Don't you notice what you're doing?
So, yes.
That's
they
cool,
needed
though.
They needed some additional or some new life jackets. Okay. So we funded the purchase of their new life jackets for this season.
Gotcha.
They're out during like May to September in the high tourist time for people, educating people.
So while we have all these people flocking to the ocean to do all those summer sports, we're going, okay, have fun, but this is the distance we need to keep so these creatures that are so important to us can thrive.
Correct. Yeah.
Awesome. As far as like being in Colorado, or people who aren't, like people in LA or whatever, what can we do?
I was going to say, I think
listen to this show, like, you know.
Right.
What do we do?
Well, I think read about the ocean, read about sea otters.
Mm-hmm.
I am teaching, that's our biggest message here while I work here is to actually educate from like the ground up. I'm actually out in elementary schools often.
I've seen pictures of you doing like little seminars, all these kids listening. It's so awesome.
So, and kids are so fun to teach. Because they absorb it all, and they absorb it all without question. And so
it's also a scary thought, right?
Yeah, that is. I was gonna say, as I said that, I'm like,
wait a minute.
Maybe that's not such a good thing, but yeah. So, they are just little blossoming marine biologists. Is kind of what
So when you're out there talking to these children, you start talking about the otters. I'm sure you got plenty of cute pictures to show them and all this stuff. Do you notice like some like the reactions coming out of these kids? Like, what are we doing here? Like,
definitely, I think the kids are the best about And I've actually been really surprised that some of them have like really good questions. They're like, well, I saw a sea otter do this. Why were they doing this? And just talking about their food or the way they're using a rock to crack open their food. And I'm just like, whoa, this is a second grader I'm talking to. That's just like 7 years old.
That's what I love about kids. Is the most honest questions.
Right.
Yeah.
And and I think they just get really excited about being able to help and being able to even teach other people. Their teach their friends about these really adorable animals that are really helpful, really necessary to all of us. And when you're in a sea otter environment, you can respect the distance.
Yeah.
And and respect what they're
doing.
Don't
be that guy that pulls it out of the water and take a photo with it. Like that makes me so angry.
You don't
I don't want to get angry right now. But
you don't want to touch a sea otter.
My fiance the other day had this ranch. She's like, I saw this article where this guy pulled out a baby shark just to take a selfie with it.
It was like,
and it's just like stuff like that. And like,
that's
come
not okay,
on,
guys.
Okay, it's not worth the hits. It's not worth the likes.
Right.
Let's be a little bit bigger than that.
Right.
Please.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. How about some integrity to our race?
Exactly. And we also, I don't know if you noticed this on our website, we have an intensive recycling program.
I did see that. You guys won an award, right?
We did.
So what is the award?
The award was for collecting the most beauty care products to be recycled, like cosmetic cases and mascara tubes that really can't be recycled in your regular recycling line. And it's a general overreaching concept that I have in the state of Colorado to try to teach people that it all gets to the ocean eventually.
Yeah, we're over here a couple states away from the coast, and you're like trying to be like, put this in this bin so that Mr. Otter here or Mr. Dolphin-nosed Dolphin doesn't get that stuck around his ball. Anything, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And even here in Colorado, I teach about the differences between a river otter that we have here in Colorado and a sea otter that we don't.
What are the big ones?
And then what the differences are. Can I come back to that?
Sure.
But so that's what I'm really focused on here. So freshwater, how do I want to say it? Freshwater cleanliness. So kids and people can understand that. So the recycling program can actually benefit Colorado as much as it can
because of the freshwater life. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, we've got so much water here in this state. I come from California where we're in a drought. And when I moved here 2 months ago, I couldn't believe the amount of resources the state had. I'm talking about natural resources. There's water everywhere.
Right.
And everything's so green.
Yes.
It's so green.
Yes.
It's absolute beauty. And at the same time, that means there's animals thriving in it.
Right.
So we need to be careful.
Yes.
And if this isn't okay,
then
the closer we get to where it's not okay, it's going to be even worse.
Right.
We talk about Mad Max, like Badlands.
Exactly.
We got to prevent that.
And definitely.
And if we're not doing it now, I mean, think about your kids. Right?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the key examples, especially right now, is the Olympics.
Right.
I mean, how many people are running that are out in the ocean? It's not the same ocean that sea otters live in, but it's the same concept that they're running into. Couches. They're out there kayaking and they're running into couches or
That's happening in the Olympics?
Giant plastic,
plastic
stuck in
islands.
The trash. Yeah,
I've heard
that they're getting stuck.
Nothing but sad tales about these plastic islands that are deep and
Right.
I met a friend of mine, a guy that does comic book reviews on our website. He had some family visiting or friends of family, and one of their people saying there was a videographer showed me all this footage. They went underwater with the whole diving suit of one of those trash islands. They took drone footage of above it, showing how wide it was, and then going under to see how deep it goes and how iceberg that is.
Right.
And it's crazy. I mean, honestly, it turns into a habitat. There's
absolutely
animals living in it. It turns into a floating wreath of sorts. But
right.
I don't know. There's got to be a better way.
There is.
Than to have I don't know, hermit crabs living in your old Nintendo.
Right. I was going to say, and my husband and I actually were just talking about this last night as we were talking about the Rio Olympics with the pollution.
Sure.
But same sort of general area, but Buenos Aires, that they had essentially an island of trash that they deemed a animal sanctuary because grass started to grow on it and animals started to go
That's
and
so
live those.
crazy.
It is
you
crazy.
get an island of trash and
It's
lawn starts going.
right.
What?
Exactly. So I imagine that iceberg of trash. That you were
under
just
like that
talking about.
level probably goes
It's
much
just-
deeper.
yeah.
It's
And
insane.
It's just education.
Right.
It's
So
just
just
biggest.
wrapping this up real quick here. How do people find you? How do people help? Where do we go on the interwebs?
Right.
Where do we put our checks if we have the funds? Where do we do all
Right.
that?
On our website at www.seaotterfoundationtrust.org.
Okay. There's no and in there.
There's not.
Okay.
It's just all one word.
SeaOtterFoundationTrust.org.
Yes. Didn't want to make it any longer there with an and.
I like how this soft abbreviation happens.
Absolutely. And because sea
Because they're
otters
soft.
they are. We had to have an acronym that had soft because they're soft.
They work out that way or you playing it?
No, I actually planned it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah.
You're like,
it was
let's be honest here.
It's got to be something so that they can be soft. Yep.
How often do you get to actually be out in the field with them?
Probably at least twice a year.
That's awesome.
So that I'm actually out surveying with some cohorts and colleagues that I have in the.
I mean, daily you're doing the work, but like when you get to actually be like, you get to
out
see a little
with them.
bugger
Right.
about twice a year or so.
yeah.
And where are your hot spots for that? You usually hit Monterey or like that
It is
area above
usually,
it?
yeah. And the Elkhorn Slough Moss Landing area is a favorite.
Awesome.
Definitely.
No, I love Monterey. I haven't been there in a few years. I frequent like Moro, Pismo a little bit more frequently than than Monterey. But in Monterey, just for our listeners, other than the beautiful, extremely beautiful coast that Monterey offers, what else is there? What can we expect to go see there besides lovely otters and an ocean?
Well, I will plug the aquarium. Certainly.
We can't skip that aquarium. That's the best of the best on the West Coast, almost.
Absolutely. You can't get better than Monterey Bay Aquarium, and I still owe so much of Sea Otter Foundation's work to those guys for inspiring
like
the
getting
idea.
it kick-started almost,
Yes,
right? Like we
absolutely.
need this, and you're like, okay, I'll step up and be that person.
Right. Yeah.
But if we didn't have that calling first, like we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Right.
Right.
Potentially not.
I don't know how I found it, to be honest. I think my fiance might have found the otter thing.
Right.
So you can thank her for that one.
Yeah. Nice.
We're both equally obsessed, though. So
nice.
So we hit the website. That's basically how we can find more information. Where else can we find just more info before we part here?
On our Facebook page, which is also Sea Otter Foundation and Trust -soft for the Facebook page.
Got it. Okay.
So,
we'll make sure to post about it so people can get on that subscriber button and all that stuff.
And I will pump a little mini Team Sea Otter that we're having. There is a 5K race that is happening in Denver.
Awesome.
Just near the near Thanksgiving.
Okay, so November.
It's in City Park in Denver, and this organization that is Colorado Runner is the sponsor of the race, and they are putting together. They're allowing nonprofits to actually fund and get teams together.
Nice.
And then they give a donation back to that particular team. So I would just pump that as well if anybody wants to come out and walk with us. It's November 19th.
Okay.
And it's the Pumpkin Pie 5K.
The Pumpkin Pie 5K,
Okay,
right on.
correct.
And there's a soft team.
Yes.
Cool.
Team Sea Otter Foundation and Trust.
Right on.
And right now, entry is $25.
Cool.
So can't beat that.
Right,
And
exactly. And let's get a big group together so we
Right.
can make sure some of these guys can be safe and eat.
Right. Definitely.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Diane. I appreciate you coming
Thank
down here
you,
and having
Dan.
this chat with me. I mean,
Appreciate it.
I learned some things more than I do so much reading on these little guys, but
Great.
thanks for teaching me new things. I more so
Absolutely.
appreciate that. And I really want to make sure that our listeners, like, tunes are coming, I promise. Just, I don't know. Let's be a little bit more aware sometimes.
Yep. Definitely.
All right, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cut right there.